Hello and welcome to our Finance 101 class. We appreciate your interest in this class. We appreciate you being on here and watching these lessons. We hope it's useful for you. Our objective or goal in this class is for you as the, student to not only gain some information and some knowledge on personal finances, but also maybe to walk away with a little bit of motivation to improve your personal financial situation. So we hope that you'll be excited and motivated to maybe save a little bit more money, invest it wisely, and properly protect yourself through insurance and things like that. So we appreciate your interest. We are kind of in an interesting time right now with this COVID pandemic where we have a little bit more time on our hands. So we thought this would be good timing to offer these classes and to have them available at this time when people have a little bit more time at home and are looking for things to do. So thank you. This is a 6-part class. Each class will be broken up into 6 lessons. Kind of 7 lessons. 6 lessons. And I'm recording this as I go along and live, so I apologize. There's going to be some errors in here, but we're not interested so much in a professional production. We just want to get this content out there. So anyway, I apologize. As I make mistakes, I'll correct them. But I guess it's no different than you watching a web classroom with your school teachers or whatever. So there's a total of 5 topics broken down into 6 lessons. So the class is a 6-lesson class. Lesson 1 is today's behavioral finance. We'll talk about kind of what motivates you in spending money and talk about goal setting as well as budgeting. Probably not the most exciting of the classes, but for some of you, maybe you'll really enjoy it, hopefully. Lesson 2 is on borrowing, so we'll talk about what it takes to qualify to be a borrower as you take out money to buy a car or a house or whatever it may be. We'll talk about what a credit score is and how to improve it and what places to look for and some things along those lines. So that'll be borrowing, lesson number 2. Lesson 3 is a 2-part lesson. It'll cover investments. There's a lot to cover with investing, so we decided to break that down into 2 parts. We'll cover kind of some basics. What is a stock? What is a bond? What is a mutual fund? Those types of things, real estate, other options, and then we'll go maybe more specifics. We'll talk about risk versus reward and how to analyze a stock, things like that. So hopefully at the end of that lesson, you'll walk away with some excitement to maybe follow the stock market, maybe pick a couple of companies that you would maybe be interested in investing in and track those companies. And as you have money available, actually make some investments in those areas. So lesson 3A and B will both be on investing. Part 4 or lesson 4 will be on banking. We'll talk about checking accounts, saving accounts, CDs, really kind of the basics of having a banking relationship. We have people in here all different ages. Some of you have had checking accounts for years. Others would never even know how to write a check or balance a checkbook. So we'll address some of those things in the banking lesson. And then the final lesson number 6, is on insurance. We'll talk about auto insurance, life insurance, health insurance. This is kind of some basics of things that you would need to know as you get a little bit older. For those who are still at home with mom and dad, eventually you will leave and need to have your own insurance. So we'll kind of give you some basic information on insurance. So there are 6 lessons. At the conclusion of each lesson, we will have a challenge. For example, that challenge might be to go and create your own budget or something along the lines of the topic. So at the end of each lesson, when you've participated in it and watched the lesson, if you can email me, my email is dave@wgwealth.com or dave@wattsgwilliam.com, which is WATTS, G like George, and then William.com, dave@wattsgwilliam.com. You can also use the email that you signed up for the class with, which is the info@wattsgwilliam.com. Any of those is fine. But at the conclusion of the class, if you can just send me an email, let me know that you participated, that you listened to the class. You can ask any questions you want also, but just let me know that you participated in the class. Maybe mention just one thing that you learned from the class. If you do that, we'll give you credit, 1 credit. In addition to that 1 credit, if you participate in the challenge and you complete the challenge, let us know that you completed the challenge. That if there's a challenge like maybe write a budget, you could send us a copy of that if you wanted to, but we'll trust you if you say you've completed it. If you complete the challenge, you'll get an additional 2 credits. So at the end of each lesson, you have the potential to earn 3 credits. At the conclusion of the class, after all 6 lessons, we will invite you to just write up a brief summary of the class, what you learned, what are like 2 or 3 takeaways that you're going to now take and implement in your financial lives. And if you do that, we'll give you an additional 3 credits. So you can get 3 credits per class, that's 18, and then an additional credit of 3 at the end of the class. So 21 total credits. The way that it'll work is at the end, we will give you basically a raffle ticket per credit, and then we will draw, and one person will win some AirPod Pros. So we may do a couple other small awards also. We'll let you know. But the more you participate, the more credits you get, the better your chances of winning those AirPod Pros. And we have quite a few people signed up for this class, but it's still pretty decent odds at winning those if you participate. So anyway, we thought we'd throw that in there for a little bit of fun and a little bit of motivation. As you go through this class, if you have questions on any of the material, please feel free to call our office. You can find us, our phone number online. You can email me at the email address I mentioned above. Also, most of this content we're taking from a financial planning course that's provided by a nonprofit that specializes in financial education for high school students. They have a textbook available. If you want a copy of that, let me know. I can get a copy of that over to you. At the end of each lesson, I will email out a link to Dropbox or somewhere where you can download a PowerPoint that has kind of an overview of everything that we'll talk about in the lesson. So you're welcome to take notes as we talk today in that, but again, you will have at the conclusion a PDF of kind of PowerPoint for your reference of really most of the material. So I'm going to kind of summarize it in the lesson, and then that information will be in there that you can review later on. So anyway, this will be pretty casual. I'm going to teach a lesson today. Going forward, I might teach all of them. We might have a couple of us teaching some. We might rotate around amongst my business partners, but each Wednesday for the next 6 weeks, we'll have these classes available. So with that, we will move forward on today's lesson. And you might wonder how long these lessons are. We kind of wonder too. My goal is to have them be about a half hour. Maybe they're even shorter than that. So today, we'll talk about kind of basics, behavioral finance. Behavioral finance is kind of a term that, it basically means what goes into the decision-making behind finances. And that can be anything from purchasing decisions, like really wanting to buy something. It can be investing with behavioral finance. Some people, when the markets get really bad, the stock market, like we've seen recently, they get really, really nervous. And so, behavioral finance is just kind of looking at the behaviors and things that drive people with their financial decision making. So with today, we're going to focus more on the spending side of it. And so we'll start off with needs and wants and some things like that. As I was thinking about this lesson, I was thinking about a couple purchases that I made recently. The first one, a buddy of mine built a new house. In his backyard, he had just all dirt. And in this dirt backyard, before he landscaped it, he decided to build a little race car track for RC cars, the miniature race cars. And he was going out there with his kids, and they were racing them and having fun. There's jumps and everything. It looked really, really cool. And he said, "Dave, you should get yourself an RC car, and you can come over here and ride them with us." And so I quickly went online, Amazon, or I don't remember where, and I bought myself an RC car. And it wasn't crazy expensive. It was maybe $150 or something. I don't remember. And I was pretty excited. And I took this car over to my buddy's house. and charged the batteries up, all ready to go. And like after 1 or 2 loops around his course, the thing had already broken. The shocks broke, and I was really, really frustrated. And it just sat in my garage for about 3 or 4 or 5 months, never used. And finally, a year or 2 later, I'm like, I just don't need this thing. I'm never using it. It's just taking up space in my garage. So I threw it on OfferUp and sold it for $30 or whatever. That was a purchase moment where I had a little bit of buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse is when you buy something and you regret buying it later on. And I was trying to think of buyer's remorse that I've had over the years, and fortunately I haven't had a lot of experiences where I had it, but this is one recently where I was kind of like, you know what, it was only $150 or whatever, but it was just a waste. I used it like twice. I lost a bunch of money when I sold it, and so that was a little bit frustrating. And then I thought about the kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. Recently, I purchased a couple of bikes for my family. These are e-bikes, electric bikes that run on a battery. They're called RAD bikes, made by RAD. I got these bikes probably about a year and a half ago, and my family loves them. We ride them all the time. My kids ride them. My wife rides them. I ride them. We tie a rope behind there. We pull skateboards, and we have so much fun on those bikes. We take them down to California, ride them on the beach, and they provided a ton of fun for our family. And they were quite a bit more expensive than that little RC car. Each one was over $1,000. But I've never regretted buying those bikes. They provided for me a lot of joy and pleasure as I've used them with my family, as I watch my kids use them, and so I have had zero buyer's remorse with that. So we're hoping with some of the things we talk about today that it'll maybe help you avoid that buyer's remorse. So let's start with, and I'm gonna. Sorry, I just dropped my mic. I'm going to write up on the whiteboard, and hopefully it's, I'll try to write big so that you can see it. So let me reach over here and grab the blue marker. So we have a want versus a need. Needs and wants. So what are some examples of things that you maybe need? I should have flipped these the other way. So some needs might be clothes, right? I don't think anybody's going to be leaving their house without clothes. A need would be maybe a house, would be another example of a need. Maybe a car, some form of transportation is another example of something that you would need. So these are obviously needs. Now within these needs, maybe there's a corresponding want. So maybe instead of just having a pair of pants to work out in, you want, I don't know how big that's going to show up, you want Lululemon pants. So it's clear that would be a want versus a need. You need clothes, you want Lululemons. Everyone needs shelter or a place to live, but is my house, good enough versus maybe a mansion on the beach? Of course, a mansion on a beach would be awesome, but this house will give me just as much shelter. So need versus want. And then there's the car versus maybe a Porsche, right? So it's important when you're making purchasing decisions to identify between needs and wants. Typically, needs are more essential, and versus wants. Wants make life maybe a little bit more enjoyable, maybe a little bit more fun, but typically we don't need those. We can get by without them. So it's important as we think about making purchases to identify, if something is a need or if something is a want. Are wants bad? No, they're not. Everybody has things that they want, and oftentimes it's good because it can motivate you financially. That's not a bad thing, but it's important to remember, depending on your financial situation, there's probably going to be times in your life where you settle more for the need than for the want. When your needs are taken care of, then you can focus maybe more on the wants, and there's a balance there, right? Maybe you think, I'm going to go for a little bit nicer car because I really enjoy driving. I like cars. I like fixing them up. It's important for me to have a nice car. So I'm going to go for the Porsche here. But I'm perfectly fine just living in a typical little house in a neighborhood that's not a big mansion on a 5 acres of land. So it's understanding these things and what's important to you. So as we consider that, this eraser doesn't work very good here. Just smeared it. It's important to think of your values when you're making these decisions. The way you spend money should really fit your value system. And there's kind of, I guess, 3 things that you can look at. Experience is one. So a lot of times your spending and your priorities with money should kind of, a lot of times comes down to your experiences that you have financially and with money. It can also come down to your beliefs. So understanding what's important to you, what your beliefs are. A lot of times your spending will fall in line with what your beliefs are. And then another one will be family and friends. I shared my story about my buddy who built that RC track, and he was enjoying his car, and that kind of led me to go out and buy my car. Now, if you have an opportunity to buy something that kind of fits, I guess in this area, I didn't draw this very good, but in an area where there's like an overlap of all 3 of those, where it fits into your beliefs, your family and friends, things that you can do with them, and then also experience that you have when it fits kind of in all those areas, then it's probably a purchase that you'll be happy with and that you'll make when you make, and that you probably won't have as much buyer's remorse. But anyway, values is very important. As we sit down with clients and we're working on their financial planning, we like to find out from them what their values are. Do they value adventure? Do they value charity and giving money, giving back to the community? Do they like risk and the excitement that comes with that, or are they more on the conservative side? So helping clients to really understand what their values are, and then we can help with the decision making on where to put their money and where to spend their money. So that's values. One, I guess, homework assignment you could do is start writing down some of these values as it relates to finance. Where do you feel like you want to spend your money? What brings you enjoyment with money? Again, some people, maybe they just really could care less about the clothes that they wear, but they really want to have a nice car. So if that person were to go out and spend a bunch of money on a nice outfit, they wouldn't receive a lot of satisfaction in that. It would feel like it'd be wasted money because they don't receive a lot of that joy, satisfaction from clothing. They receive it from driving a nice car, so that their money should be going towards a nicer vehicle. So really understanding what motivates you, what your values are with money. Now going back to, we talked a little bit about buyer's remorse. And when I was a kid, I grew up in Southern California, and we have earthquakes in California, and so we would do earthquake drills, and you know immediately, as soon as you felt the ground shake, you would stop, you would drop down to the ground, you would go underneath the table, and that was like ingrained in our minds. And also most of you probably heard stop, drop, and roll, right? If you catch on fire. Now, it seems like that's something we all know about, and I don't think I've ever met somebody that's caught on fire. So anyway, we're taught these things, and yet it hardly ever happens. So with finances, kind of like the stop, drop, and roll thing, before you go and purchase something, there's a couple things that you can consider and think about. And I'm going to kind of glance down at my notes here on this, and this will be in the information we give you later. It's called the stop, drop, and think before you buy test. So you think, do I need this or do I want it? So coming back up here to what I wrote before, is this a need or a want? If I don't need this, why do I want it? And then exactly when will I use it or wear it? Can I find it for less somewhere else? And then what will I give up? What will I have to give up or put off by buying this now? So if I buy this now, is there something I have to give up to make that purchase? So those are some questions that you can ask yourself before you buy something. And if you answer honestly, and the answers come back in favor of kind of your values and what you want, then you can move forward. You buy it, and you'll probably be happy with that decision. I like the thing exactly when will I use it or wear it. I've had some experiences with that. And I know lots of times I find a T-shirt that I really like, and I'll buy the shirt, and then I'll never end up wearing it because I already got like 20 T-shirts in my closet. So anyway, just asking these questions before you spend money can really help you in your decisions on spending money. Okay, so let's move on now to goals. When we're talking about goals, we're talking about what we call SMART goals. And with SMART goals, the first part is specific. So when you set goals, this can be financial goals or any goal really, you want it to be specific. So for finance, maybe it's, I want to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in, wherever, USA. So you're specific, right, on exactly what you want. The second is measurable. So you want the goal to be something that you can, that's clearly measurable. Again, I want to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in anywhere USA for less than $170,000 or whatever. I want to buy new tires for my truck for $800 or whatever. So have that goal be measurable. The third for the A is attainable. So, if you're making $75,000 a year and you set a goal to go out and buy a $30 million mansion on the beach, probably not attainable unless you're going to be able to win the lottery or something. So make the goal attainable. The third is relevant. You want your goal to be relevant to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. If you think about, a financial goal, if you, kind of a weird example, I guess, but if you're out of college, you're not gonna have a goal to save money for education. You're done. So you want these goals to be relevant and to those things that you're trying to focus on, and again, to your values. And then the last one is time bound. So you want these goals to have a time on there. So my goal is to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in anywhere USA within under $170,000, and I want to buy it within 5 years from now or whatever. So you have a time there on that. So these are the goals: SMART SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So that's kind of a summary on goal setting. Now we have examples in the information that we'll give you a little bit later on. So as you set goals, there is kind of 3 goals you can focus on. One would be short term, and we kind of identify short term as up to 3 months. So short-term goals up to 3 months. We have a medium, which is going to be 3 months to 1 year, and then our long-term, I'll just put LT here, is greater than 1 year. So as you are setting your goals, you could have goals that fit all of those areas, right? So if you're a younger person, you might have say you're in high school, you might have a short-term goal, and that is to buy a particular outfit, your favorite outfit from the store, and you want to do that in the next 3 months. And a medium-term goal in the next 3 months to a year, maybe it's something a little bit nicer. You want to buy a new skateboard or something like that. A long-term goal is greater than 1 year. You might look out to college and say, I have a goal of having X number of dollars available to pay my college tuition, and I go to college in 3 years from now, so I'm going to start saving now. So that would be an example of a longer term goal. So short term, medium term, and long term goals. Now, as far as getting to your goals, it's important to have a budget. And I think this is the last part of today's lesson. So a budget. What is a budget? You've probably heard of it before. Maybe your parents talk about. Oops, I dropped my mics again. Maybe your parents have talked about budgeting, and you've heard them talk about it. Most people don't like to talk about it. Sorry, I'm going to get clipped back on here because it's not always a fun thing. Budgeting, especially when you get older and you're married, and you. Maybe it makes you feel restricted in some ways, but with a budget, basically you're gonna map out your income and your expenses. Okay, so your income can come from a job. It can come from receiving gifts from your birthday, from grandparents. It can come from doing chores around the house, whatever. But you have different sources of income as you get older. Maybe some of that income comes off of investments. But you can kind of outline or write down what your income is here, and then you have a bottom line number. Let's say you make $1,000 per month. Okay, so you have $1,000 that you earn per month. Now over here you have expenses. Okay, and again, expenses can be anything from paying rent. It can be buying clothes, paying utilities to have water and electricity in your house. It can be buying food, going out to dinner, entertainment, all those things, right? So you got the different expenses over here, and there's a bottom line number. So if this bottom line number is $800, then you have earned $1,000 and you spent $800, and that means you have $200 left over that you can do something with. So that $200 extra can go towards saving. It can go towards investing. If you borrowed money for a car or a house or something, that extra $200 could go towards paying down that debt. Whatever it is, there's an extra $200. If you have this budget in place, you should know how much money you should have at the end of the day. And so now that $200, instead of that being at the end, you actually take that money and you pay yourself first. So the first thing you do when you get your $1,000 is you pay yourself $200. That's now gone, and it is going into your savings account or whatever, investment account. Now you only have $800 left over. Well, if you factor out all these expenses, this $800 is gone. It's now $1,000 because you gave $200 to yourself, and it now balances out to be zero. There's nothing left over. So that's a good situation to put yourself in. One of the most important lessons that we can teach any youngster with finances is to spend less than you earn. If you spend less than you earn, if your expenses are less than your income, over time, you have extra money saved, and that money can be invested. It will grow, it'll earn interest, and you'll put yourself in a good financial situation. Now, let's reverse these and say that your income now is $800 a month, and your spending is $1,000 a month. So now, at the end of the day, you have a negative 200. I should have done that in red. That's a negative 200, okay? So you now are running at a deficit. You are spending more money than you're earning. Where is this money going to come from? You're going to have to borrow it. And that leads to debt. And with debt, you pay interest. And over time, that interest accumulates. and you get in a really, really bad situation financially, and can lead to bankruptcy and other problems. So if you get in this could happen short term. Maybe you receive commissions for work based on sales, and you don't earn as much money as you thought. And so then you got to come over here and look at your expenses and probably trim expenses. You have two choices: trim expenses back down to the 800, or go get another job or sell something, find a way to bring in more money over here to balance it out. Okay, so really you want more income higher than expenses. We have clients that are very successful financially. Some of them the good ones have just done it slowly but surely over time. Over the long term, they spent less than they earned. They saved the difference with smart investments, and they're in a very, very good position financially. So I can't say that enough. Make sure you're spending less than you're earning, and be smart with the difference. One thing that some people do is when they see this difference at the end, go back to the other scenario where you had an extra $200. When people get in that situation, they think, oh, I've got an extra $200, I'm going to spend it. And so again, now all they're doing is driving their expenses back up equal to their income. They don't have any extra to save for the future. Okay, so get in the habit when you're young, even if you're in high school, get in the habit of keeping track of how much you're earning and how much you're spending, and make sure that you're spending less than you're earning. Okay, so that's budgeting. We have some slides in here, I think some examples in here for you on these things. So all right, so ideally what you want to do is at the beginning of the month you give an estimate here, a projected income and expense, and then that shows you how much money you should have at the end of the month, and then you know how much money you can be paying yourself first. So you plan out kind of beginning of the month, or even for a whole year at a time you can do that, but you plan out in advance, month to month, income, expenses, and then that would be like a projected, and then at the end of the month you can come in here and you can plug in your actual income and your actual expenses. So like if you work on a spreadsheet, you can have one spreadsheet be projected, and then the next one column be projected, the next column would be actual, and then you can run a comparison so you can really identify areas where you did better or worse. You can see areas maybe where you can improve. Maybe you have a budget line for eating out, and you have a certain amount there and you went over, and you consistently are going over there, then you know you either need to cut that expense and not eat out as much, or you need to increase that expense and reduce an expense somewhere else, because obviously you're finding value in eating out. So having a budget really doesn't limit you. If anything, it should kind of make you feel a little more free, because you identify over time trends and know really that your money's going towards what you're enjoying and valuing. And so the budget will allow you to make sure that fits within how much money you're earning. So again, most important, spend less than you earn, and over the time you'll do just fine. So today's challenge, or this lesson's challenge, is to write down a value, or at least one value. Send it to us. So let us know you watched the video and one thing you learned from it. And then for the challenge, you're going to write down your values, financial values that will help motivate you in your financial decision making. You're welcome to send those to us, or you can just let us know that you did that. And then also the second challenge is the budget, is to write up your budget. So if you don't have a lot of earnings and income, you can just make like a pretend budget that would be kind of appropriate for someone your age. But even if you don't earn a lot, I would recommend just even still having some a budget here. Maybe it's just an allowance from parents, and your spending is going to the movies and buying popcorn. Well, I guess today you're not going to the movies, but you know what I mean. So put together the budget, let us know you did that. You can send it to us for advice if you want and help, or you can just tell us you did that. So challenge items, a value and budget. Get that to us, you'll get 2 points. Get us the response that you watched the video, you'll get 1, and here we go, we're off and running. So let us know if you have any questions, and call me, email me, and we'll get back to you on those, and we'll also get you the other information from this class. So thank you for your time.